You are listening to Esoteric Discussions with Valentine St. Aubin on Peterborough FM, www.peterborough.fm.
Hello and welcome to Esoteric Discussions with me, your host, Valentine St. Aubin, a show where we go deep down into the rabbit hole. You can catch me here on every other Wednesday evening from 9 p.m. on Peterborough FM or online, or if you would like to learn more about me, please visit my website at valentinesaintaubin.co.uk. So it's the 27th of June 2012 and I've got a very, very special show for you tonight. I'm going to be joined very shortly by Nancy, leader of Zeta Talk, and we're going to be talking about Planet X. Last year I had a couple of guests on who joined me, and we had two different shows about Planet X. One of the guests was Anne Ella and the other was Andy Lloyd, and they both had different takes on Planet X. Anne Ella has more of the same kind of information that Nancy Leader is going to share with us tonight, whereas Andy Lloyd was coming from more of an academic point of view and wasn't really a believer in Planet X. I think it's probably safe to say, but still very interested in it. So we're going very deep down into the rabbit hole tonight. You know, this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, and of course Nancy Leader has been working tirelessly trying to get this information out. It has not been an easy ride for her at all. She's been doing this for a good 16 years and basically giving the same message. And I would actually say, finally now, maybe the information is starting to come into its own as the earth changes are becoming more and more obvious, and the whole global warming issue and the argument for global warming has been breaking down. So we're going to be getting an update as to what Planet X is doing, and an update on some of the Zetas predictions. And hopefully, if she's up for it, we'll also have her channel the Zetas, and I'm going to ask her a few questions as well. So it's going to be an exciting show, so sit back and relax. We're going to take a break, and I'm going to get her on the line. And when I come back, I'll have Nancy Leader from Zeta Talk with me. Okay, so that was the music from a very old movie called Starman, and I love that soundtrack. As you know, if you listen to the show, I love soundtrack music, especially like sci-fi soundtrack music. So I have Nancy Leader on the line. I'm just going to open up her mic because I don't want to waste any time tonight, because she's got great information to share, and I want to make sure that we do not run out of time. I'm going to open up her mic. Nancy, are you with us? Hello there. Let me just turn you up because I think you're just slightly faint. Just hold on. I think that's a bit better now. Thank you very much for joining me. I know you're a very busy woman, and I know you give lots of interviews, so I thank you very much for being on my show tonight. I wanted to ask you, Nancy, have you seen the movie Melancholia? It came out last year and it's about Planet X.
I did hear about the movie, didn't see it. About, depression, basically, and then the world ends. What is going to be happening to the Earth with the passage of Nibiru, or Planet X, or Wormwood, it goes by many different names. It's a rogue planet that's larger than the Earth. It emits its own light, but it's only 4 times the diameter of Earth, so it's not as big as Jupiter or something like might be surmised. And it passes every 3,600 years or so, and it jerks the Earth around pretty badly, as you might imagine, and is the reason for wandering poles, ice ages. If you go back to the Jewish Exodus, where the rivers turned blood red and the frogs were jumping around and the Red Sea parted and Egypt became very discombobulated and the slaves walked off and nobody noticed, that was the last pole shift. So the one coming up is going to be more severe. They vary depending on where all the planets are lined up when it makes its passage. This is a passage, not a collision. And it's a magnetic planet, so it is currently causing our Earth to wobble, pushing our magnetic North Pole away when the sun is over the Pacific every day, and then letting it bounce back. So if you were up above the North Pole, you would see the North Pole forming a figure 8, and rather than just a swirling ball, around the geographic North Pole. So this causes roiled weather. It's causing a lot of volcanic increase because the core is roiling. It causes a lot of electromagnetic interference with satellites and the like. And just getting started.
Yeah. Well, this is what we're going to talk about tonight. There's going to be some people that have never heard of Planet X, and then there's, of course, always the ones that are very aware. So I don't want you to have to go and keep repeating information that you constantly give. But you've already started off the show by giving us a good intro into what Planet X is. So let's move this forward. I mean, there's a lot going on this planet, and we're seeing very severe Earth changes. How is Planet X related to the earthquakes and a lot of the major Earth changes that we are seeing? Because it's becoming very noticeable now that something is not right with, however you want to term it, our ecosystem, our climate, what have you. So maybe give us some more detail in this regard.
Sure, it's directly related to the earthquakes we're getting. Of course, we've seemingly had earthquakes, forever, as long as. But actually, the Zetas, whom I'm in contact with, aliens from Zeta Reticuli, and who have formed the basis of my website, zetatalk.com, they describe the earthquakes that we have between the times of pole shifts as aftershocks. In other words, 1812, New Madrid fault line, etc. That was an aftershock. 1906 in San Francisco, that was an aftershock. And we're now in the period where earthquakes are picking up again. They are much more frequent and in higher magnitude than the statistics would let you believe, because they pull earthquakes out of the database whenever they can. If they're out in the ocean or somewhere where they can get away with just deleting it, they do. And then they dumb down the Richter. They've been doing that for a decade, where if it's really a 7.9, they'll call it a 5.9. And a lot of them are just the 0.9, just under an 8 or just under. So that if you ran up statistics for an Excel spreadsheet, you wouldn't really see the increase, but it shows up on spreadsheets anyway. They can't lie too badly. If you have an earthquake in the middle of a city and all the buildings are dropping, they can't say what earthquake, although they pretty much try to do that. And there's a lot of shuddering, where the ground will just shudder and the windows rattle, and the earth will moaning and groaning, singing music. If it's anywhere near water that the tension is that's causing vibration in the rock, you'll get tones. And they've been recorded in Kiev and in Montana. And
the recordings are actually quite fascinating to listen to.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I suppose maybe some people might say, oh, but, how do we know that they're real? But there are quite a number of them that have been captured, many of them being uploaded onto YouTube, so people can go and check them out. But so this is directly related to Planet X, Planet X's influence.
It is. Basically, with the Earth wobble, being pushed. This is stress on the plates, and there is plate movement. The Zetas predicted what they call a 7 of 10. Back in 2008, someone said on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we today? And the Zetas at that time said at 2 or 3, with 10 being the pole shift, 9 being the last weeks, which ran about 2 months. We're in 7 right now, and what this is a series of plate movements, squeezing of the Sundra plate over there under Indonesia, where it went down around 40 to 80 feet. And those areas, they predicted this was going to are indeed underwater. You can see from the MODIS satellite images. Then they said South America would push its top part over, and you can see that ongoing. They're having tremendous mountain building all the way from Colombia down, and then Africa would switch and drop a little bit, and that is also happening in process, not just barely begun. But one of the 7 of 10 plate movements is the New Madrid adjustment, which will be severe and rip the Mississippi River bridges and the like. This plate movement creates, of course, there's compression like along the Ring of Fire, but also there's, conversely, there's stretch zones which pull apart. That's the Rift Valley in Africa. That's the southeast United States, western UK, all the way up to Norway and on down, that has land under the water that used to be above the waves, just as the east coast of the United States has land under the water where they can see tree trunks and dead buffalo and things like that that used to be above the waves because the Atlantic rips apart. That's the stretch zone. So when this happens and you have land being pulled apart, all these sounds almost invariably come out of stretch zones. Although we have booming, Seattle drums and Costa Rica drums had booming too. And here in Wisconsin, 5 miles from me, we had booming because the Seaway, St. Lawrence Seaway, is pulling apart also. So when you have the rock pulling apart or the like, or under pressure, it's the pressure and release, or the pull and release that causes that vibration. If you had a cable and you were pulling it apart and the cable strands were snapping one by one, every time a cable strand snapped, your hands would jerk a little bit apart, and then they would bounce back together again as a reverberation or as an adjustment. So it's that back and forth that creates a vibration. Vibration is sound. Right. That's what makes music. That's what makes the sound that we're hearing as we speak to each other.
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about yourself, Nancy, for those that don't know very much about you, because you have a very interesting story, don't you? Because you are a contactee, but you learned later in life as opposed to earlier in life.
That's right.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I was a contactee. Actually, first contact was maybe 7 or 8 years of age, but the Zetas say that they knew me in past lives, and that I had wanted a communication role during this period, and they knew me well as somebody who would stand up to intimidation. I wouldn't let the message get twisted just because it wasn't popular, and decided to back me. It was much more popular than they expected, so I've got a troop of Zetas behind me, making sure that nobody shoots me, and the like, and helping. If I'm answering Zeta Talk and it's a scientific question, then I get their scientists in this or that discipline behind me, or sociological, and they even have poets, I can tell. Some of the Zeta Talk is very poetic. So I was basically a sleeper contactee until 55 years of age, and the reason for that was so that I would have credibility. If I had been running around all my life saying, "Oh, I'm talking to the little gray guy," then they would have said, when I came out with Zeta Talk, "Oh, she's been nuts all her life. She's always been that way, always been crazy." So this way, I had a career in the computer field and developed a large computer systems, managed up to 20 or more people under me, made a ton of money, and I can point to that as saying, boy, nobody had ever suggested that I was wacko. As a matter of fact, they gave me a lot of responsibility. So it was for that reason that I was a sleeper. But at 55 years of age, my son, who was apparently to awaken me, said, "You know, Mom, I think I'm a contactee, and I think our family is." And I was quite resistant to the idea, but I got into self-hypnosis, which is pretty simple to do. You just relax and hypnotize yourself out. And out came all the stories. They explained the little scars. They explained the missing time. And I remembered instances where the clothing wore, or the smells, the sight, the sound. When you recall things, and like a dream, you don't have smell and touch and sound and the like. But if it's your own memory, you do. Mm-hmm. And then I went to get the old photo albums and the like, and I said, "Oh, look, that is what I wore when I was 9 years old or whatever." So now when I say to people, could you have a secret life and be a contactee and not know it? Oh, you betcha.
How many contactees would you say are currently on the planet? I mean, is it a quite a regular occurrence, or is it just a very, very small percentage of the population?
Well, you'd be as surprised as I was the other day. In 2012, they were asked. In 1998, someone asked that question, and they said, let's estimate about 12,000 genuine contactees, mm-hmm. meaning, not just people who think about it, but they are. They were asked that question again this year, and the answer was stunning. They said over 1 billion.
Wow.
And it's because of the type of thing you mentioned, where the earth changes. People see the sun rising where it shouldn't be. The moon is way out of place. The weather has just gone wacko. And they sense they're being lied to by their governments. And then they get into noticing things around the sun. People will use filters to filter out the sun's glare, and they see things swirling around. Well, this is Nibiru's vast dust cloud and moon swirls and the like, and it is between us and the sun. And the increase of fireballs slinging in. They're not meteor showers. They're not related to meteor showers. It's not space junk, although this was the early talk. But now it's just, well, there it goes again, another barrage of... This is debris.
There has been a lot of that, yeah. NASA's been sort of reporting those fireballs as debris and...
Right.
Yeah, space junk, as they're calling it. Yeah, it's trying to downplay it. Mm.
So people are curious, and curiosity is... Aliens can come and talk to you if you give what they call the call. That can be curiosity. It can be a desire for counseling. Even prayer can be considered, where you're, or you want information, or you want intervention, that type of thing. Then they can come down and talk to you. Now, if you don't want contact, you can refuse it. Contact is always recorded in the subconscious, and the reason for that is, our world is in a transformative period, an awakening period, but as it's happened on other worlds, on occasion, the creatures that were becoming aware that they were not just the only intelligent species in the universe, as we've been told by our churches, etc., very recently, they can turn on each other and panic and savage each other. And I point you to the 700 Club, Pat Robinson, mm-hmm. which about a decade ago said that anyone talking to aliens should be stoned. So he was basically saying people should go and murder me.
Yeah.
And this is the type of savagery that people who are threatened by the alien presence can bring about. So to protect people, contactees, who might go out and freely say, "Oh, I had the most interesting contact with," and little green men, or my contactee was kind of a greasy toad, but boy was he smart, and and so they don't get fired, divorced, and put in wacky words as crazy or whatever. It's recorded only in your subconscious. At some point in the future, that won't be the case, and aliens will walk among us, and everyone will be vindicated. But most contactees prefer to have that be kind of buried down in their subconscious, where they know about it, but they don't get in trouble on the job or with the spouse, etc. So 1 billion people We only have 1 billion reincarnating human souls, even though we have 7 billion people. We have 1 billion people who are incarnated with star children, souls from elsewhere. Okay, that's 2 billion, right? What about the other 5 billion? They don't have souls.
Okay.
They might spark a soul, but they don't have a reincarnating soul. And most, like when we had the caveman and the like, people find this a little hard to understand. You don't automatically spark a soul just because there's an intelligent life. There has to be some kind of challenge or dissension or motivation where the person, they're not just passive and sitting in the berry patch, or whatever,
waiting,
taking it easy. That does not. A beautiful life, a trouble-free life, is not mean spiritual growth. So not every caveman developed a soul and became reincarnated, and not every soul on Earth today develops a soul just because it's a human body. So we have 1 million reincarnating souls, almost 2 to 1, who are contactees, and star children, of course, are like, you don't call them contactees because they came from other worlds to begin with, and they're in a special category. So just about everyone, really, who has an older soul or has a reincarnating soul is a contactee. One out of 6 humans that is not a star child is a contactee.
That's quite fascinating when you think about that. Like if you're going into a shopping centre and if you have that sort of number in your mind, there's quite a lot of people who are in touch but don't realise they're in touch. But then when the movies come out, that's why I asked you about, did you see, because I haven't seen the movie Melancholia myself. I will eventually try to see it. I always try to see all these movies at some point. But, I think that is why so many people are drawn to a lot of these sci-fi movies at the moment, because they do feel something on the inside, even though in their outer reality, this kind of stuff is presumed to be nonsense, as people like to always conclude. Now, Nancy, I wanted to just quickly ask you about this because I have noticed a few scientists talking about this. It's the magnetosphere. They're saying that it's thinning. How is Planet X affecting the magnetosphere, that area that protects the planet?
Sure. It's been under pressure because Planet X is a big magnet, as we are. Venus is not magnetic. Mercury is. We're magnetic, and the Sun is. The Sun, Mercury, and Earth all point north, or a little bit off north, but all in the same direction as the Sun. Planet X comes in, and because it passes under the South Pole on its way up and out, it twists around. Right now it's pointing its North Pole more directly at us rather than up. And this means that we get a blast, and that North Pole blast tends to not only push us, our North Pole, away once a day for the bouncing that goes on with the wobble, but it also twists our magnetosphere. Now, for about a decade, since 2004 or 5 or so, there's been a simulator in Japan that showed this twisting and turning, and sometimes it would appear that our planet completely lost its south pole, or the blowout would go from the North Pole, but it wouldn't wrap around to the South Pole. And various twists, which the Zetas explained as either magnets can do a lot of funny things. If you try to get a couple of magnets to touch their North Poles, they don't want to. The weaker one will bounce away, tries to line up. North Pole to South Pole, North Pole to South Pole, like all in a line. And they're planets, and they can't necessarily snap together, and they're still trying to line up with the Sun somehow at the same time. A opposition lining up, side by side. Those are the 3, and whichever is in place, the magnetosphere. So this has been on. If you go into my website on the left-hand side, Pole Shift blog, click on that. It's an ongoing discussion about what the magnetosphere is doing. Too threatening, and they took down that simulator so you couldn't see those pictures anymore.
Right.
They've tried taking down their evidence of Planet X was showing up on there, looking like a winged globe, but the winged globe in the Sumerians would draw this first started showing up. That's it. So it's physical appearance, toward Earth. So the magnetosphere is not being influenced by the sun. It's not anything strange going on. It's Planet X. They come up with a long list of the most ridiculous excuses to explain an increase in earthquake. Yet they just ignore what's showing up on some excuses and themselves in the knots to avoid saying, look, Nibiru is true. It's here. It's passing. It's right next to the sun, between the sun and the Earth. Nancy Lieder has been right all along. Instead, a NASA senior NASA people, Dick Morrison and Don Humans, in lectures and the like, Nancy Lieder.
But that's when you know that. Yeah, that's when you know. Name you.
Name you. They never name.
Yeah.
You shouldn't listen to.
Yeah.
And do they actually think that's going to get people? Of course, everyone thundered over to their PC to enter my name into the
exactly.
Why shouldn't we be listening to her? So that shows you, that it's real. That alone should show you that it's real.
Yeah, let's. There's just so much to talk about, and I'm trying to make sure that I at least get a lot of the basics down, so that people get a good idea. For those who have never heard of Planet X, get a good idea of what this is all about. Let's talk about the ancients, and I mean, how many ancient civilizations have documented Planet X? I know we have the Egyptians with the Colburn Bible, those texts, and as you were saying, the Sumerians. Who else do we know where we have some physical evidence have sort of talked about this?
There's quite a few. It's in folklore in almost every. I know the Aborigines make a reference of sort. In South America, I think they call it Herculebus, but I think that was based on a prophet that they had in South America. I know the Ethiopians do. It's primarily the ancient Sumerians, which were sort of immortalized by Zechariah Sitchin, who wrote The 12th Planet in that series of books. As you mentioned, the Egyptians, who were impeccable record keepers, and that was documented in the Colburn, which is available also online. And it describes the time of the flood, the time of the Jewish Exodus, and makes predictions on the forthcoming, which of course is very similar to what they describe for those last two. The Bible also matches the Colburn, for instance, in the book of Revelation, but there's other chapters that line up almost one-to-one in what the Colburn and the Egyptians are describing. So every civilization, I know that Emmanuel Velikovsky, who wrote Earth in Upheaval, documenting the physical evidence of the Earth, how approximately 3,600 years ago, or a little more than that now, because of when he wrote the books in the 1950s, I think. The oceans of the world dropped 15 to 20 feet worldwide because of ripping apart, of the continents and shifting around. So where'd that water go? Of course, it went into deeper ocean ravines. But he mentions in Finland that they talk about, with this great flood, with the waters coming in mountain high. The American Indians up and down, the west coast of the Americas and South America, all had legends talking about South Seas people, talking about the great, heaping waves washing over, the mountains all exploding, what they call firestorms dropping from the sky, and burning people. That happened in the Middle East, and also along the west coast, and the ground becoming so molten it's almost like wax. Now, these particular descriptions happen where the ground becoming hot, where there's rapid subduction. And the Zetas say, don't be down in the valley, be up a ways along the hillsides, even though it's very windy. Don't be right down standing in the creek, because, that's where it's going to get real hot from the subduction. So water would boil, and also the falling firestorms that comes as the wafting tail, which is full of petrochemicals, wafts over volcanoes. And just as we make gas and oil products, by cracking, this is a type of cracking or a type of molding petrochemicals. The Zetas have actually said that oil in the ground does not come from rotting dinosaurs. They've never been able to recreate oil in the lab. It comes because when the Planet X or Nibiru passes and wafts its tail over the volcanoes, petrochemicals are formed in the air. They rain down. If there's no oxygen in the air, and no lightning to spark something like that, it drains into the broken ground and forms oil pools down low. But if there is a chance of fire, that can be set afire and drop like a blanket of fire. And the advice for those surviving the pole shift is not to be under maybe a sod-covered board or a piece of metal. Lay in a trench, pull something over you, and you won't be affected by this. So Zeta Talk has a lot of suggestions on how to survive that tumultuous hour of the pole shift.
Okay, Nancy, we're going to take a slight short break, so I can let you take a break from from speaking, and I'd like to in the next part have the Zetas come on as well. I've got a few questions for them, if that's okay. So let's take a little break. We're going to play a song, and then after that we'll get going, because I really don't want to waste time. It's just going to be a short break, but we'll just have a breather for a minute, okay? So just hold on, Nancy. I'm going to turn your mic off, and we'll be back shortly, okay?
Okay.
Right, so this is me, your host, Valentine St. Aubin, and you are listening to Esoteric Discussions. I'm here every other Wednesday evening from 9 p.m. on Peterborough FM, and I am joined by the very lovely Nancy Leader. I'm going to open her mic back up. Nancy, you there?
Yes, sure am.
Okay, so we're going to continue this conversation. She's been sharing information with us about Planet X, and we're now I'm going to put forward some questions to the Zetas. I've been looking forward to this all day, because I have many. So the first question I'd like to ask is for myself, if you don't mind, Nancy. Okay. I've been seeing, last year when I had Anne Eller, who Anne Eller was the secretary for Dr. Hynek, who is known as one of the fathers of ufology, and he categorized, the term that Steven Spielberg made famous into his movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And before I had her on the show, I saw this. It looked like a Japanese fire lantern high up in the sky, but it was moving across really, really fast. I saw that then. I've seen it another time, and just after I got confirmation that you would be coming on the show, I saw it again, and actually my husband has witnessed it as well. Can the Zetas tell me what that is? Am I seeing something, or is it just a Japanese lantern?
Here's Zeta Talk. This is, of course, a UFO, particular to you, because you are on the air. Media personalities are given a lot of confirmation that they are contactees, that we are real, because to get the word out as you are doing today. And appearance of a Japanese lantern, there's always what we call the element of doubt, which is documented on the Zeta Talk website. It was documented early in the Zeta Talk saga, 1995 or so. What this is in order to keep mankind from becoming anxious about the alien presence. The government is telling you that they're going to mass land and eat you and colonize you. They're doing that today on TV shows and movies, which predominate rather than Close Encounters of the Third Kind or E.T. And the reality is this is not allowed. Any aliens who might have that in mind are not going to be allowed to do that, or they would have done it already. Why should they hold back and wait? So contact is quite safe. You cannot be harmed. The worst thing that can happen is if you have a negative thought in your head about how to murder your neighbor or run off with his wealth, or his wife, you'll get a counseling from those aliens who like to take advantage of others, what we call the service to self. Selfish, immature, never grew up, and they are taken off to prison planets, but they are allowed to counsel and confer like a little devil on one shoulder, while the little angel on the other shoulder is telling you to be empathetic. So they cannot hurt you during contact, counter to what you're being shown in the movies and on TV shows. So the element of doubt makes sure that people aren't pressed so closely to the truth that some people might panic, harm other people, attack other people, or we're not so much worried about racing hearts and the like, or a faint, as that type of retaliation, which can and does happen, as Nancy explained earlier on your show. So it may have looked like a Japanese lantern, but it was moving too rapidly, and there were other clues that you got that this was not the case. But other people, if you had told someone else or said, "Oh, look what I'm seeing," they would have said, "Oh, you're blind, it's a Japanese lantern," because denial sees what it wants to, and if it was threatening to that person, they would have excluded the facts that you received and only entertained the facts that comforted them. End of Zeta talk.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, thank you, because I've been wondering about that. My next question is, why did the pole shift not happen before 2012 as was predicted by the Zetas?
Yeah, here's Zeta talk on that. We originally predicted, prior to 2003, we predicted that it would happen, and we quote, shortly after May 15th, 2003. This was, and we predicted that it would come into the inner solar system 2001, 2, and 3, and it was tracked by observatories and people taking imaging and infrared imaging and the like, and it did arrive almost exactly where we said it would be seen in the skies by March of 2003. Well, our accuracy in predicting its path in, as viewed from Earth, was taken very seriously by the U.S. government. Bush, for instance, rushed into Iraq even before the UN inspector had finished looking for nuclear components in that country. And there were other clues given to people that they took our words very seriously. The military in Iraq even named an Operation Planet X. So they knew about us, and they showed by their behavior that they were not planning to inform people, that they were planning to keep it a secret and let people just fend for themselves when it hit, and they all had their bunkers that they were going to run to. Having made that statement and shown that to the world, it didn't happen, the pole shift, and it has not happened yet, although Planet X, Nibiru, has snuck by the South Pole, is drifting outwards and upwards, and getting ever closer, and it is not going to be avoided, nor is our predictions about the extent of the cataclysmic changes on Earth going to be avoided. We called it a white lie after that and said we make no apologies for those people who made arrangements for a safe place, got chickens and goats, are living in the country, have their own gardens, have learned how to save seed. They're better off for it, because now land is in those areas has gone up in price, and it has become more difficult, to find jobs and the like, so that no one would regret having made changes in 2003. That's the explanation for why it didn't occur in 2003, as implied by the Zetas earlier.
Okay.
And that's the end of Zeta talk.
Okay. And also, can the Zetas just answer this? Because obviously many people do not believe that Planet X exists, because the argument is, if it was there, such a large body, we would be able to see it in the sky. Can the Zetas explain why the average person cannot see it physically sitting next to the sun, even though it's very close to the sun?
Sure. And here's Zeta talk on that. Well, you don't see Venus either when it's close to the sun. Venus is the morning star or the evening star, but when it's close to the sun, it's lost in the sun's glare. You have to have a filter for that. Now, Venus has a smooth surface and therefore reflects light, reflects sunlight. Planet X is shrouded in a dust cloud that is an iron oxide dust cloud because it used to sling through the asteroid belt where there were many planets that were pelted to pieces by the moons of Planet X. And the remnants of all that lava, etc., were swept up by this magnetic planet. Iron oxide is magnetic, and therefore it has this charged reddish cloud that it's shrouded in. Can you see through a fog? If someone is standing in dense fog, you can't see them even though they're only a few feet away. So that's the situation. On occasion, in 2003 on, if Planet X was at the right angle from the sun, sunlight would bounce from the sun to Planet X dust cloud and bounce back toward Earth, and there would be a brilliant second sun sighting. People would see two suns rising or setting, and this was captured on film in many cases and still is today. But in the main, it's more directly in the line of sight, and therefore sunlight hitting this vast dust cloud bounces back toward the sun. And what you see from Earth is a dim fuzzball in the sky, which you can't make out all that well considering the glare. Now, there is a technique called red filter, which Nancy likes to call the red filter revolution, because Alberto in Italy, who took many pictures in 2003 and then took a sabbatical and came back recently, has found that he can take a filter, the red film from the interior of an old floppy disk. Everyone has floppy disks laying around. Take out that film. It screens and filters for red. By this we mean that the red light spectrum light comes through more readily than the other spectrums, and takes photographs of this and the like, and there's Planet X, and there's its many moon swirls, which are most often more visible than Planet X itself, because they are long tube-like affairs, many moons swirling in a tube, and when they turn so that the tube is facing toward Earth, sunlight funnels down through that tube, ricochets off the interior sides of that tube, and comes out the other end like a light out of a flashlight, more brilliant than Planet X itself. And just go to this Planet X blog that Nancy has referenced and just see the photos. You will be stunned. End of Zeta Talk.
Okay, thank you very much. My next question is, ancient civilizations such as the Mayans say that the galactic center or Milky Way is the central sun. What is the purpose of the galactic center?
Okay, here's the Zetas on this. Galaxies, of course, are numerous, and you are only aware of a few in your part of the universe. Just how far the universe goes, we won't get into because it would be mind-boggling, and it appears to you to be endless, and it appears to us to be endless also. We do not know the end of the universe. There is a Big Bang system whereby that portion of the universe refreshes itself periodically, sucks into a black hole, explodes outward, and then everything is spinning and moving, and suns and their planets evolve, galaxies evolve. It is just the reaction to the last Big Bang that affected that galaxy. And spinning and motion is something that it is built in, apparently by God, into particle flow movement. Particles of a similar nature, such as electrons or magnetons or gravitons, are attracted to each other and want to clump at the same time. If it's too crowded, they push away from each other and seek a less crowded arena. Thus, they are constantly in motion. And it is this motion that creates the Big Bangs, the planets coalescing and zinging around a sun, and the like, the push and the pull. If this were not in place, the physical universe would just be one big clump. Nothing would be happening. and there would certainly be no spiritual growth. All of this was designed by God, we presume, so that spiritual growth will occur, souls will spark, and life will evolve on worlds, and things are very interesting. End of Zeta Talk.
Okay. My next question is this one. Who are the Council of Worlds, and what has been the purpose of placing the large humming boxes that have been found in key locations around the globe?
Okay. Here's the Zetas on that. In our part of the universe, we have a council, which is we call the Council of Worlds. Intelligent Worlds are mandatory association from Intelligent Worlds being governed by this. It's a governing force, but it is an elected body. You can call it similar to the Supreme Court, but this is an elected body by every reincarnating soul that they govern. Of course, these souls are weighed by age and wisdom. A brand newly born soul would not have the same weight as someone with 20,000 incarnated lifetimes, for instance. And everyone weighs in and elects this council, and they decide things like genetic engineering. What alien life form could do genetic engineering on this or that world, and other such spats, among alien groups. They also are a police force. If you violate one of their rules, their hand is instant and invisible. For instance, on Earth, aliens are not allowed to maim humans or touch or affect them physically. They can only counsel them without their permission. And should an alien even intend to violate this rule, they would find themselves in another part of the universe before they could even blink an eye. Such is the reach and knowledge of the Council of Worlds as far as policing and administering the worlds under their responsibility. What they did in placing the humming black boxes was slow down what we have referred to as the 7 of 10 changes. When we first predicted these in the end of the fall of 2010 and latter part of 2009, was that it would occur rapidly around the end of 2010 or rolling into the next year or so. And it just seemed to drag out. I mean, it was progressing, but it dragged out. And the reason for this was that the cover-up over the presence of Planet X has been so firm and so intractable that the vast majority of the populace of Earth is not aware that big changes are going to be happening, mass death, and they don't have an opportunity to take a spiritual lesson from this, to say, I don't think I'm going to survive, but I can help other people. Or to say, I better, steal as much money as possible from other people and squire it away in the Caribbean islands because I'll never get caught in time. We're going to have a pole shift and they'll never track me down in time. So people can make positive spiritual choices and negative spiritual choices, but they have to have an opportunity by being empowered with knowledge. And because the cover-up prevents this and says, everything's fine, just go to your jobs, don't worry. If there was a planet out there, we'd tell you, NASA would tell you, then they can't even begin, this spiritual decision-making opportunity. So the Council of Worlds decided to go to war over the cover-up and has been making various moves to alert mankind. More serious wobble, the Venus transit didn't occur as expected, etc., etc. And they're getting more and more serious about it because they want, the governments to come out and say, okay, Nancy's right, there's a planet there, and even if they lie about, it's not going to be as serious as Zeta Talk says, at least say there's a planet out there and it's going to be making a passage. So people can, begin to say, what am I going to do for or against other people? And the humming boxes are basically preventing plate movements from being catastrophic. they slow down jerking, violent plate movements, so that it's a grinding movement rather than jerking and violent upheavals. And there are thousands of them. We were told by the Council of Worlds to allow some boxes to be discovered in a beach of Sri Lanka and also off Oregon, so that the word could get out that there was an interference with violent plate movement and why. But most of the boxes are not seen. They're shrouded from view, and we have many ways of bending light rays so that people just don't see what's there. They see what's behind the box, not the box itself. We hide our motherships in the sky in this same way by bending light rays. But that's their purpose. End of Zeta Talk.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. I just find it so interesting, and unfortunately we have run out of time. The hour goes very quickly, but I think that we've tried to give quite a bit of information tonight. I would definitely like to have you come back later on in the year, and we can have an update as to what's going on with Planet X. I'm sure there'll be more movements and things happening, so there's always lots to talk about, isn't there? Let's be honest.
Oh yes, there is, and I would be delighted to come back.
Very good, very good. So just tell us your website, please, Nancy.
Zetatalk.com, ZETATALK.com.
Okay, so she has a wealth of information on her website. I'm always there every week looking at the new updates that they post every week. It's a mountain of information. So if you love this type of stuff, that's where you need to go and check out. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, Nancy. I'm going to close your mic, and I will get this to you as soon as I can and get it up onto YouTube. But you've been a great guest tonight, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Right, so that's it, guys. I'm going to have to rush off here before the show actually clicks off. But thank you very much for joining me. And until next week, as I always say, keep your eyes on the stars.